10. Maybe, maybe not. School was almost over, and the tips of Gabriel's fingers still tingled. For the first time in his life he was looking forward to copying a dictionary page. Laura would be there too. He would have given anything to know what was in her note. Maybe she'll tell me, he hoped. Maybe she'll tell me all about Pig City. Maybe she likes me. Maybe, please, maybe. His mind ran wild with maybes. Laura looked at the clock. In 5 minutes she'd be alone with Gabriel. She'd have to say yes to his face. No more notes. Mr. Doyle never stayed after with kids when they had to copy dictionary pages. "Why should I have to stay after school because you got in trouble?" he always said. "I have better things to do than to play nursemaid to you." Laura knew that in his own way Mr. Doyle was really saying, "Even though you got in trouble, I still trust you enough to leave you alone in the room." Normally she liked that. Not today. She was afraid Gabriel would try to kiss her in the classroom. When the final bell rang, her friends crowded around her desk. "What'd the note say?" asked Tiffany. They were all dying to know. "I told him I thought he was uglier than a two-headed frog," she told him. It wasn't a lie. Allison laughed. "What's wrong with that?" asked Tiffany. "I would have read that out loud." "I don't think Gabriel's ugly," said Kristen. "He's cute." "I hate him," said Laura. "Do you girls want to copy dictionary pages too?" asked Mr. Doyle. "No," said Allison. They turned to go. "We won't tell Debbie anything until you get there," Allison told Laura. Mr. Doyle followed them out through the yellow curtain. Laura watched Gabriel get up from his desk and walk to the metal closet. That was where Mr. Doyle kept the dictionaries. He had about 50 old paperback dictionaries. They were used just for punishment. There was a large hardcover dictionary that was used for normal dictionary purposes. She watched Gabriel thumb through a dictionary, obviously waiting for her. "I'm not going to kiss him here in school," she thought. "I'll do it in the doghouse." She stood up, lifted her cap, wiped her hair back, and pulled the cap back down. She walked up beside him and grabbed one of the paperback dictionaries. "Pick a page with a picture," he said. She nearly jumped out of her skin. "What?" "Pick a page with a picture," he repeated. "If you pick a page with a picture, then you won't have to copy as much. You don't have to copy the picture." She looked at him as though he were crazy. "Have you told anyone about—" "No, I told you I wouldn't." "Yes, I know what you told me," said Laura. "I meant it," said Gabriel. He smiled. She couldn't bear to look at his smiling face. She detested him. "Okay," she said firmly, "but not here in school. Can you come over to my house after dinner?" "Sure." "Okay, then," said Laura. "Okay," said Gabriel. He tore a page with a picture out of his dictionary and returned with it to his seat. Maybe. Laura ripped a page out of her dictionary. She brought it back to her desk and slowly and carefully copied everything on it, still using her broken pencil. A half an hour later she looked up to see Gabriel drop his completed pages on Mr. Doyle's desk. "You're through?" she asked hatefully. She was only a little more than halfway done with hers. "Sure," he said with a shrug. He walked back to her desk and watched her write. "You should have picked a page with a picture." She ignored him. "You're writing too neatly also. You should write fast and sloppy. You'll get done quicker, and it makes it harder for Mr. Doyle to see if you made any mistakes." He was an expert at copying dictionary pages. Laura continued to write at her own pace. "Well, see you later." She cringed. When she finally finished, she had used both sides of 2 pieces of notebook paper, plus half the side of another page. She stapled it to the dictionary page and put it on Mr. Doyle's desk. On the blackboard she wrote, "Pigs fly high." 11. Howard. When Laura got home, she found Tiffany, Allison, and Debbie waiting inside her house in the kitchen. They were eating licorice sticks and finishing off the last of the frozen pepperoni pizza that Laura's mother had microwaved for them. Each girl had a glass of grape juice in front of her. They all said hi. Tiffany and Allison didn't salute, not with Debbie there. Allison went to the doghouse and got the tape recorder. Tiffany went into the living room to get more licorice. It was kept in a jar on the coffee table. The first time she came over to Laura's house, she couldn't believe that she could take as much as she wanted. "You mean I don't even have to ask your mother? She won't care?" She had never heard of such a thing. They started down the hall toward Laura's room. Pictures of Laura's family, from her great-grandparents to her nephew, lined the walls. "Laura, you're home," her mother said, going the other way. "What happened?" "I had some work to do for Mr. Doyle," she explained. "I needed to use the dictionary." She led her friends into a room and closed the door. She had her own phone with her own private number. She took the phone off the top of her dresser and placed it on the thickly carpeted floor. Everyone sat around it. Allison got the tape recorder ready. "Before we tell you anything," said Laura, "we need insurance." "What kind of insurance?" "You have to call up a boy in our class and tell him that you're secretly in love with him," said Allison. "Passionately," said Tiffany. "We'll tape the whole thing," said Laura. "Then if you tell anybody our secret, we'll play the tape in front of Mr. Doyle's class." "What secret?" "We'll tell you after you call up the boy." "Disguise your voice and don't tell him who you are," said Tiffany. "He'll never know unless you break your vow of secrecy." "What boy?" asked Debbie. Laura looked at Tiffany and Allison. They hadn't picked the boy. "How about Gabriel?" suggested Allison. "No!" shouted Laura. Tiffany and Allison looked at her strangely. "Okay, who?" asked Debbie. "How about Howard?" Laura suggested. Everyone laughed. It was because of Howard that clubs were no longer allowed at school. Howard's mother had called and complained that none of the clubs would let Howard join. Tiffany looked up Howard's number in the phone book and called it out. Debbie pushed the buttons on Laura's phone. Allison turned on the tape recorder. She held the microphone next to Debbie's mouth. "Hello," Debbie said in a husky whisper. "May I talk to Howard, please?" She turned to the others. "I think that was his mother." They laughed. "Howard," said Debbie. She handed up. "Oh, Howard, is it really you? This is your secret admirer. I love you passionately," Tiffany whispered. "I love you passionately," Debbie said with feeling. "Who is this?" asked Howard. "I can't tell you," said Debbie. "I'm afraid you'll break my heart." She hung up. Everyone laughed. Allison spoke into the microphone. "That was Debbie. She just called Howard and told him she loved him passionately. Didn't you, Debbie?" She handed her the microphone. "Yes," said Debbie. "That was me. I'm Debbie. I disguise my voice because I love Howard so much and I'm afraid he won't love me back." They all laughed. Allison switched off the tape recorder. "Welcome to Pig City," said Laura, fist at nose. 12. The Kiss. "So tell us about school today," said Laura's mother during dinner. "Anything special happen?" Laura nearly swallowed her piece of pot roast whole. She coughed, then pointed to her mouth. She chewed her meat very slowly as she tried to think of something that happened, something she could tell her parents. She swallowed and took a drink of water. "We had a math test," she said. "Oh, how'd you do?" asked her father. She shrugged. She knew she'd be lucky just to have passed it. She had only answered 14 questions out of 20. "Mr. Doyle hasn't graded it yet," she said. "It doesn't matter anyway." "What do you mean it doesn't matter?" asked her father. "We've been having tests all year," Laura explained. "One more test isn't going to make too much of a difference." Right after she said that, she knew it was a mistake. Her parents gave her a long lecture about how every test, every homework assignment is important. She must never let up. Just because her grades had been good so far, that was no reason to quit. They compared it to a race. It doesn't matter how far in front you are. If you stop just before you reach the finish line, you won't win. Laura said yes, or I know, or you're right, at least a dozen times during the conversation. Though she was hardly listening, her mind was on Gabriel. She decided she'd get it over with quickly. When Gabriel arrived, she would step outside, kiss him, tell him she hated his guts, then step inside and close the door. 1, 2, 3. That was the way to do it. It was always best to do dreadful things quickly and then be done with them. If you form good study habits now, while you're young, they'll stick with you for the rest of your life, her father said. "That's good advice," said Laura. "I'll remember that." "Your father's right," said her mother. "When I was your age, I didn't have to study, and I got good grades. But when I went to college, I had trouble because I never learned how to study. It's the students with good study habits, not necessarily the smart ones, who succeed in college." "You're right," said Laura. "May I be excused?" "You've hardly touched your dinner," said her father. "I guess I'm not hungry," she said. She was too nervous to eat. "All right," said her mother, "but don't come back in an hour and expect me to feed you." Laura left the table. She went to the bathroom, where she brushed her teeth and rinsed her mouth with wet mouthwash. Even though she hated Gabriel, she didn't want to have bad breath when she kissed him. She waited nervously in her room, listening for the doorbell. She had to be sure she answered it before her parents. When her phone rang, she jumped. She started to answer it, but stopped. She didn't want to be on the phone talking to Tiffany or Allison when the doorbell rang. The phone kept ringing. She'd have to make it quick. She picked up the receiver. "Hello?" "Hello, Laura. This is Gabriel." She collected herself. "Where are you?" "Home," he said sadly. "I can't come over tonight. I'm grounded because I had to copy another dictionary page. I have to stay home all weekend, too. Gee, that's tight, said Laura. She wondered how it would affect their deal. I told my parents they could ground me for 2 months if they just let me go out tonight, but they said no. Laura felt flattered. She got an idea. She lay back on her bed. How would you like to join Pig City? She asked. Sure, he replied. Of course, you know that means you'd have to give insurance. Of course, said Gabriel. She could hardly believe how well this was working out. You understand, she asked, that if I let you join Pig City, then I don't have to, do anything else? I understand. Okay, when do you get off being grounded? Next week, Monday. Okay, after school on Monday. All right. Good, then it's all set, said Laura. In the meantime, don't tell anyone. I won't, I promise. They said goodbye and hung up. Laura was amazed. It was perfect. There was no reason not to let him join, since he already knew all about Pig City anyway, and she didn't have to kiss him any more. She felt a little disappointed, however, that he had so quickly dropped his demand to kiss her just to join Pig City. She walked back down the hall to the kitchen. Her parents were just putting up the last of the dishes in the dishwasher. I'm hungry, she said. Is there anything to eat? She sat down at the table. As she ate the leftover dinner, she tried to think of different possible insurances for Gabriel. 13. Karen and Yolanda. Everyone laughed when they saw pigs fly high on the blackboard. Mr. Doyle didn't say a word. He merely erased it and put the number 3 next to the rectangle under the word dictionary. He had told the class earlier in the year that anybody who didn't complete all of his or her dictionary pages by the end of the year wouldn't graduate. Laura wasn't worried. She didn't think he would really keep somebody from graduating just for that. Besides, it was only 3. Besides, he had to catch her first. She had a bigger problem. Somehow, she had to convince Allison and Tiffany to let Gabriel join Pig City. Last night it had seemed the perfect solution to her problem. Now it seemed almost impossible. Maybe it would be easier just to kiss him, she thought. Mr. Doyle handed back the math test. He had them arranged in order from worst to best. Laura's was on top. What happened, Laura? He asked as he placed her test on her desk. This isn't like you. She saw a red B+ on the top of the page. I guess I had a bad day, she said. I'd say so. I'd hate to see you fall apart now after you've been doing this. Mr. Doyle continued passing back the test. One test won't matter, she thought. So who should we ask to join today? Tiffany asked as the 3 girls walked out to recess. Laura scrunched up her face. She wondered what they'd say if she suggested Gabriel. No, she didn't wonder. She knew. That was the problem. How about Karen? Said Allison. She's fun. No, said Laura. Karen's always talking. How do we know we can trust her, even with insurance? Allison and Tiffany agreed. Karen talked too much. She was too happy, too. They couldn't trust someone who smiled all the time. What about Yolanda? Said Tiffany. She never says anything. I like Yolanda a lot, said Allison. She's nice. Laura tried to think of something wrong with Yolanda. Debbie and Kristen joined them. 5 fists met 5 noses. Who are we going to get today? Asked Kristen. And what are we going to do to her? Asked Debbie. Yolanda, said Tiffany, only you're not allowed to know what she does for her insurance. That's not fair, complained Debbie. Do you want her to know what you did for your insurance? Asked Allison. No, said Debbie. Well then, said Tiffany. Is Yolanda all right with you, Laura? Allison asked. I guess so. The citizens of Pig City searched for Yolanda. They found her sitting with Karen on the edge of a planter. Yolanda and Karen were best friends. Karen liked to talk, and Yolanda liked to listen. We have to talk to Yolanda alone, said Tiffany. Karen got up and left. She didn't mind. Nothing ever bothered Karen, not even Gabriel. Karen sat in front of Gabriel in Mr. Doyle's class, so she was often the victim of his pranks. Once he tied her shoelaces to her chair. When she tried to stand up, she fell over and her desk rolled on top of her. She twisted her ankle. She didn't mind. Gabriel kept saying how sorry he was, but she just laughed. Yolanda and Sheila had to carry her to the nurse's office. She talked and made jokes the whole way. Yolanda was the opposite of Karen. She was very shy and hardly ever said anything. She was scared to death of boys. She was very pretty, too. She had golden skin and jet black hair, but her shyness kept her from being popular. They told her to come to Laura's house after school. She said she would. They told her not to tell anyone. She said she wouldn't. It was too easy. Yolanda was too nice and too scared to say no. As they walked away from her, Laura saw Gabriel leaning against the school building and watching them. His fist was on his nose. She looked around at her friends, but they didn't seem to notice him. "I have to go to the bathroom," she said. She went to the bathroom so it wouldn't be a lie. She went in, turned around, and went out. Then she went to Gabriel. "So when do I join Pig City?" he asked. "You're not allowed to do that," she told him. "Do what?" "The Pig City salute. You're not allowed to touch your nose until you become an official member." "You changed your mind, didn't you? I knew it." "Be cool," she said. "Just don't salute anymore. Everything will work out." She turned and walked away. Her hair swished around behind her. It was Friday. Gabriel got off being grounded on Monday. She had then to figure out some way to let him join or kiss him. 14. Jonathan. After school, Laura, Allison, and Tiffany waited in front of Laura's house for Yolanda. They thought up the perfect insurance for her. She'd have to write a love note to a boy. Then if she told anybody about Pig City, they'd put the note in the boy's desk. She was so scared of boys she'd die before she told anyone. "We'll let her pick the boy," said Laura. "She won't be able to," said Allison. "She's too shy." "We'll make her pick one," said Tiffany. "I bet she can't do it," said Allison. "I bet she can't even say a boy's name." When Yolanda arrived, they tied a dish towel over her eyes, then led her around to the doghouse. They sat her down on the bed. Laura told her what she had to do for insurance. "And you have to pick the boy," said Tiffany. "Okay," said Yolanda. "Jonathan." They were shocked. Allison untied the blindfold. Yolanda blinked her baby blue eyes as she looked around the clubhouse. They gave her a piece of paper and a pen. Tiffany dictated, "Dearest, darling Jonathan." Yolanda blushed as she wrote down everything Tiffany said. Laura didn't especially like Jonathan, but she knew a lot of girls thought he was handsome. Laura didn't like boys with blonde hair. Jonathan's hair was so blonde that in the summer, when he went swimming, the chlorine from swimming pools gave it a green tint. Besides being handsome, Jonathan was also probably the smartest boy in Mr. Doyle's class, and also the best athlete. He knew it, too. That was the main reason Laura didn't like him. She thought he was too conceited. Gabriel is smarter than Jonathan, she thought, even if his grades aren't as good. Yolanda finished writing the note. It read, "Dearest, darling Jonathan, I'm madly in love with you. I dream about kissing you all the time. You're so handsome. I'd love to run my fingers through your hair. Love, Yolanda." 15. Executive Session. Over the weekend, Laura, Tiffany, and Allison met in the doghouse to discuss the future of Pig City. They ate pickles and chocolate chip cookies and drank lime slushes. "Who else do we want to join?" Tiffany asked. She took a large bite out of a kosher dill pickle. "I think we have enough members for now," said Allison. "Let's do something spectacular." "Like what?" asked Tiffany. "We could have a bake sale," Allison suggested. "Ooh, how spectacular," Tiffany said sarcastically. "We could raise money with a bake sale," said Allison explained, "and then do something spectacular." "We're a secret club," said Tiffany. "If we have a bake sale, then everyone will know about us." "Oh, yeah," said Allison. Tiffany took another bite of pickle. "Unless we sell invisible cakes," she said. Allison laughed, even though the joke was mostly on her. "I think we should ask boys to join Pig City," said Laura. Tiffany dropped her pickle. The three girls watched it roll across the floor and under the television. Allison said, Well, who do you have in mind, Laura?" Laura didn't want to play her hand too quickly. "We should ask 3 boys," she said. "We should each pick one." Allison looked down at the floor. Tiffany stared up at the ceiling. "We made Yolanda pick a boy," said Laura. "If she can do it, why can't we?" Tiffany and Allison remained silent. "They'll have to give insurance," said Laura, "just like everybody else." That was the clincher. Smiles formed on the faces of her 2 best friends. "Who picks first?" asked Tiffany. "You can if you want," said Allison. "I didn't say I wanted to," said Tiffany. "Well, do you?" asked Laura. "I don't know," said Tiffany. "Go ahead, Tiffany," said Allison. "Who do you pick?" Tiffany started to giggle. "If you don't choose," said Laura, "Allison or I might pick the boy you want." Tiffany stopped giggling. A glow came to her cheeks and there was a sparkle in her eyes. "Nathan," she said sweetly. Laura and Allison laughed. "What's so funny about Nathan?" Tiffany demanded. "Nothing," said Laura. "It was just the way you said it." "I just said Nathan," said Tiffany. They laughed again. Tiffany laughed too. "Okie dokie do," said Allison. Okie dokie do was one of Nathan's favorite expressions. Your turn, Allison, Tiffany said sharply. Who do you choose? Oh, I don't know, said Allison. I can't think of any boy I especially like. How about Carl? Suggested Tiffany. No, I don't know, said Allison. How about Aaron? Asked Laura knowingly. Allison blushed. Aaron, it doesn't matter to me. Okay, Aaron. How about Jonathan? Suggested Tiffany. No, said Allison. Yolanda wrote Jonathan a note. I guess Aaron will be okay. How about Paul? Suggested Tiffany. I said Aaron, Allison snapped at her. Tiffany's mouth dropped open. She covered it with the palm of her hand and stared at Allison, wide-eyed. She took her hand away and said, You like Aaron, don't you? Allison shrugged. He's okay. He dresses nice. Laura and Tiffany broke up laughing. His grandmother picks out his clothes, said Tiffany. Your turn, Laura, Allison said brusquely. Who do you pick, Laura? Asked Tiffany. Laura lifted her cap off her head, brushed her hair off her face, and put the cap back on. Gabriel. Tiffany and Allison were too stunned to laugh. I thought you hated Gabriel, said Allison. I think Gabriel will be a loyal citizen of Pig City, Laura asserted. You said he looked like a two-headed frog, said Tiffany. So, said Laura, maybe I like two-headed frogs. Her friends laughed. Aaron's got nice eyes, Allison said sweetly. Nathan's as cute as a bug, said Tiffany. 16. Insurance for boys. It wasn't easy trying to think up insurance for boys. They couldn't ask a boy to give them a pair of his underpants. They didn't want to ask a boy they liked to call up another girl and tell her he loved her. There were some other ideas they thought up, then rejected for obvious reasons. Paint nail polish on their toenails. Then we'll take off their shoes if they tell anybody about Pig City, Tiffany. Tell them to buy baby dolls at the toy store. Then show the dolls to everyone if they tell anyone about Pig City, Laura. Make them give us all their socks. Then we'll meet them before school every day and give them their pair of socks for the day. If they tell anybody about Pig City, we'll give them socks that don't match, Allison. Make them drink poison. They have to drink the antidote every day for the rest of their lives or else they'll die. We'll be the only ones who have the antidote. If they tell anybody about Pig City, they die. It doesn't really have to be poison. We can make it ourselves using prune juice, vanilla, and food coloring. They might think it's not really poison, but they wouldn't know for sure. Instead of saying it's poison, we can tell them it's a magic love potion. If they don't take the antidote every day, dogs and cats, all three. Make them cut up onions until they cry. Then we'll save their tears and show them to everyone if they tell anybody about Pig City. And everyone will call them crybabies. Laura. Make them call up a pizza parlor and order 20 large pizzas but not give their name and address. Then if they tell anybody about Pig City, we'll call the pizza parlor back and tell them where to send the pizzas, Tiffany. With lots of anchovies, she added. That's the dumbest idea you've had yet, said Allison. All three girls lay on the floor. Tiffany had one foot in the beanbag chair. The lime slushes, cookies, and pickles were long gone. We can make them put on funny clothes, said Laura, and then take their picture. My sister left a lot of old clothes at our house. We could make them wear a dress. No, that wouldn't work for Aaron, said Tiffany. He already dresses funny. She and Laura laughed. Allison didn't. Just because Aaron doesn't dress like everybody else, she said, there's no law saying you have to wear blue jeans and sneakers. I think Aaron dresses like a perfect gentleman. I think he dresses like a perfect nerd, said Tiffany. Okay, I have another idea, said Laura after a while. We can make a tape of each boy saying something stupid. Then if they tell, we'll play the tape to the school. No, that wouldn't work for Nathan, said Allison. He's always saying stupid things. She and Laura laughed. Tiffany didn't. Nathan says a lot of very intelligent things, she said. It's just that everybody else is too dumb to understand them. Name one smart thing he said Allison. Tiffany thought a moment. Hey, half a pickle, she said. She found the rest of her pickle, which had rolled under the television. I have an idea, said Allison. We can make them write a nasty letter to Mr. Doyle. Then if they tell anybody about Pig City, we'll give the letter to Mr. Doyle. They'd have to stay after school and copy a dictionary page. No, that won't work for Gabriel, said Tiffany. He's always copying dictionary pages. She and Allison laughed. Laura didn't. It's not always his fault, she said. Everybody always tells on him. He never tells on anybody. "How about this?" said Tiffany. "I have the best idea yet." She smiled mysteriously. "What?" asked Allison. "How about this? Before they join Pig City, we tell them they have to kiss us." Laura and Allison looked uncertainly at each other. "How will that work for insurance?" Laura asked. Tiffany shrugged. "I don't know." This time they all laughed. 17. Arrangements. Laura wrote pigmentation on the blackboard. It was the biggest pig word she could find. She had looked through the large hardcover dictionary. She knew she had time because Mr. Doyle usually was a little slow on Monday mornings. He often came late to class, bringing his cup of coffee with him. Laura imagined that was due to wild weekends spent with beautiful and exotic women. She erased the number 3 next to the rectangle under the word dictionary. She wrote the number 4 in its place. "That'll show him how much he scares me." Mr. Doyle walked in a couple of minutes late, carrying his cup of coffee. He went straight to the blackboard and erased pigmentation. He walked over to dictionary. When he saw the number had already been changed, he was so surprised it made him drop the chalk. It landed plop into his cup of coffee. The class was hysterical. "Okay, settle down," he said. He pulled out the wet piece of chalk. "How do you take your coffee?" he asked. "Cream and chalk," he answered. Everybody laughed again. Mr. Doyle looked at his cup of coffee as if he was wondering if he could still drink it. "I guess I'd better start getting here early," he said, glancing up at Laura. She smiled at him. She and her friends had finally decided on insurance for the boys. Aaron would have to sing a silly song into the tape recorder. Nathan would have to write a nasty letter to Mr. Doyle. Gabriel would have his picture taken wearing one of Laura's sister's old dresses. They had quickly rejected the idea of kissing them. For one thing, it wouldn't work for insurance. For another, none of them had the guts to say it to the boys. At recess, they split up. Allison went to find Aaron. Tiffany went after Nathan. Laura spoke with Gabriel. He started to salute, then stopped, remembering what she had told him. "Am I in?" he asked eagerly. "Shh, not so loud," she cautioned. He waited. She took off her cap, wiped her hair off her face, and then put the cap back on. "You have to give insurance first." "Right, I knew that," he said. She told him to come to her house after dinner. She knew Aaron and Nathan were supposed to come right after school. She met up with Tiffany and Allison. They were both very excited. "Boys are so dumb," said Tiffany. "They'll do anything you tell them." "I told Aaron to come to your house and we'd tell him what pigmentation meant," said Allison. "He said he already knew what it meant, color. I told him that was only the dictionary definition. I said I'd teach him the real meaning." "I didn't tell Nathan nothing," said Tiffany. "I asked him yes or no, and he said okie dokie do." The 3 girls laughed. "What about you, Laura?" asked Allison. "Is Gabriel coming?" "Oh, I found out he was grounded," Laura said. "I guess I'll talk to him tomorrow." Nothing she said was a lie. He had been grounded, and she probably would talk to him tomorrow. She didn't want Tiffany and Allison there when Gabriel was initiated. She was afraid they might find out he already knew all about Pig City. "I hope they'll agree to give insurance," said Allison. "Boys are so dumb," said Tiffany. "They'll do anything we tell them." 18. Nathan and Aaron. After school, the Pig City executives waited at Laura's house for Aaron and Nathan. They were so nervous they laughed at anything anybody said. They laughed when Laura's mother asked them if they would like a frozen pizza. "Of course I'll heat it up first," she explained. That made them laugh harder. She shrugged. "I should be a comedian." "We don't want any pizza," said Laura. "Thank you anyway," said Allison. "Yeah, thanks," said Tiffany, and then she cracked up again. When the doorbell rang, the laughter ceased. They all got up to answer it. Nathan and Aaron stood on the other side of the door. "Hi," said Nathan. "Hi," said Allison. "Hi," said Laura. "Hi," said Aaron. "Hi," said Tiffany. "Hi," said Nathan again. "Come on, let's go," said Laura. She, Tiffany, and Allison stepped us outside. Aaron and Nathan stepped inside. They crashed in the middle. "This way," said Laura. She led them around the side of the house to the backyard, then into the clubhouse. Nathan was first. They told Aaron to wait outside. "Wowie zowie," said Nathan as he looked around the doghouse. He sat on the bed. Tiffany sat next to him. Her right leg and Nathan's left leg were less than an inch apart. Laura sat in the swinging chair, and Allison was on the giant purple beanbag. "We're about to tell you a secret," said Laura. "You must never repeat any of it to anybody." "I won't," he said. "Cross my liver." He made an X over his left side where his liver was, or at least where Laura thought it was. She didn't know for sure. "We need insurance," said Allison. "You mean like life insurance?" "You have to write a nasty letter to Mr. Doyle," said Tiffany. "We'll tell you what you have to write." "Then if you break your vow of secrecy," said Allison, "we'll give him your letter." "Hey, that's neat," said Nathan. "That's clever." They gave him a piece of paper and a pen. He leaned over and wrote on the top of the coffee table as the three girls dictated to him. "Dear Mr. Doyle," Allison began. "Dear Mr. Doyle," wrote Nathan. "You stink," said Laura. "You stink," he wrote. They made it up as they went along. "You're the most ugliest teacher in the school," said Tiffany. "You're too stupid to be a teacher," said Laura. "And you have bad breath," said Allison. "Wait, not so fast," said Nathan as he furiously tried to keep up. "Have bad breath. Go on." "I hate you," said Laura. She waited for him to finish. "Then sign it, sincerely, Nathan." Nathan finished the letter. Laura read it over, then gave it to Allison. She put it in the treasure chest. Nathan's and Tiffany's legs were now touching, but they each pretended not to notice. "Welcome to Pig City," said Laura, nose and fist together. Nathan returned the salute. "I'm proud to be a member of such a fine organization," he said. Aaron was next. Between the time Nathan left and Aaron entered, Tiffany and Allison switched positions. Allison was on the bed. Tiffany was on the beans. Aaron sat next to Allison. He wore brown slacks and hard shoes. His shirt looked freshly ironed. His hair was neatly combed. You could tell just by looking at Aaron that he always wore clean underwear, too. "I thought clubs were illegal," he said. "What club?" asked Allison. "I don't know anything about a club," said Tiffany. Aaron smiled. "I don't know anything about a club either." Allison smiled at him. For his insurance, he had to sing a song into the tape recorder. It had 3 verses. Each girl had written a different verse. Allison handed him a piece of paper with all the words. "You have to sing this," she said. "Then if you tell anybody what we tell you, we'll play the tape for the whole school over the PA system." "It's to the tune of 'Mary Had a Little Lamb,'" said Tiffany. Aaron looked it over. "Okay, I'm ready," he said. He put the paper down. He had it memorized. Laura handed Aaron the microphone, turned her cassette player to record, and signaled for him to start. He sang, "I am such a stupid jerk, stupid jerk, stupid jerk. I am such a stupid jerk, I don't have a brain." That verse was written by Laura. She didn't dare look at Tiffany. If she did, she knew they'd both crack up. Allison listened serenely to Aaron's serenade. "I just love to pick my nose, pick my nose, pick my nose. I just love to pick my nose. It is so much fun." That was Tiffany's verse. The last one was Allison's. "I'm in love with every girl, every girl, every girl. I'm in love with every girl in Mr. Doyle's class." Laura turned off the recorder. Allison clapped her hands. 19. A dress for Gabriel. Laura quickly gobbled down her dinner, hardly pausing for a breath of air. "May I be excused?" she asked. "We don't have a daughter," said her father. "We have a vacuum cleaner." Laura laughed. "You know, you really shouldn't eat so fast," said her mother. "It's not good for the digestion." "Too late now," said Laura. "You may be excused," her father told her. She rinsed off her plate in the sink, then stuck it in the dishwasher. She hurried to the back of the house to get ready for Gabriel. She went into her sister's old room. When her sister had moved into her own apartment, she had left a lot of old clothes behind. Most of them were pretty tacky. Laura thought they'd be perfect for Gabriel. She rummaged through the dresses hanging in the closet. She took out a frilly white one and held it up in front of her, trying to imagine how it would look on Gabriel. She shook her head. She stuck her head back in the closet, then gasped with delight. She saw the perfect dress for Gabriel. It was a Hawaiian muumuu. It was bright pink with lots of big yellow and purple flowers. "He'll look so pretty in it," she thought. She brought it to her room and laid it delicately on her bed. She dragged her desk chair to her closet, stood on it, and got her camera down from the shelf. It was the type of camera that developed the pictures itself in 60 seconds. She checked to make sure it was loaded. Her eyes turned to the muumuu. "Just divine," she said out loud. It was large enough that Gabriel could wear it over his clothes. He would just have to roll up his pant legs and shirt sleeves so they wouldn't show, and take off his shoes and socks. She wondered why the dress was called a muumuu. Maybe because it's big enough for a cow, she thought. Moo moo. She smiled at her joke. She'd have to remember to tell it to Gabriel. She made sure her parents weren't watching, then brought the camera and the dress out back to the doghouse. She draped the dress over the television and put the camera on top of it. She returned to her room and waited. Gabriel stood outside the front door. Maybe, he hoped. What if Laura found out he really didn't know anything about Pig City? He wondered what she meant by insurance. Somehow he had to get her to explain it all to him, then act like he already knew it. Maybe, 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 maybe. Laura, 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 Laura. He rang the doorbell. "I got it!" Laura shouted. She ran down the hall, past her mother. She stopped just before the door. She took off her cap, wiped her hair back off her face, then put the cap back on. She opened the door. "Hi," said Gabriel. She was glad Gabriel knew all about Pig City. She wouldn't have to go through a lot of explanations. "Come on, let's go to the doghouse." "To the doghouse," said Gabriel. They went through the living room, which was a big mistake. Her parents stopped them and asked her to introduce him to them, and then everybody said how nice it was to meet each other. Laura waited impatiently. They went out the back door. "Yep, there's the doghouse," said Gabriel. There was no mistaking it. He walked inside. She followed. He sat in the swinging chair. She was going to tell him that was her chair, but then decided it didn't matter. She sat on the bed. She glanced quickly at the dress and camera lying on the television. Then her eyes turned to Gabriel. He swiveled around in the chair, looking at everything. "What do you think?" she asked him. "Just as I expected," he said. "Okay, here's the thing," said Laura. "Even though you already know about Pig City, you still have to give insurance, just to make it official." "Right, I knew that," he said. Laura smiled. She got the treasure chest out from under the bed. "You know what this is?" she asked. "A treasure chest," said Gabriel. Laura nodded. "Inside are the treasures of Pig City," she said. "It's where we put everybody's insurance." She sat back down on the bed. Gabriel snapped his fingers. "Oh, I just remembered," he said. "I left my insurance at home. Why don't you let me use somebody else's insurance for now, and then I'll bring my own insurance to school tomorrow." "What are you talking about?" "Nothing. Never mind." "I pick your insurance," said Laura. "You don't get to bring your own." "Right, I knew that," said Gabriel. "I was making a joke." "Okay," said Laura. She looked at the moo. She wondered if Gabriel would really agree to wear it. She thought about Aaron and Nathan, how quickly they had agreed to do what they were told. But Gabriel was different. Aaron and Nathan were followers. Gabriel was a leader. "Okay, here's the thing," said Laura. "Now you have to agree to do whatever I say." "I will. Once I tell you what your insurance is, you can't change your mind." "I won't." "Okay, here's the thing," said Laura. She stopped. "What?" he asked. "Okay, this is what you have to do." "What?" She took off her cap and wiped her hair off her face. The hat stayed off. "What do I have to do?" he asked. "You have to kiss me."